She earned her stripes right here in the halls of Texas Southern University as a music student. Now, as a performer and music's hottest up and coming songstress, she's graced her talents all over the world. This is Jourdan Michelle.
I shattered on the floor. What would it take for you to give me more? Yeah, love is in pieces.
Hello, Miss Jourdan Michelle. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me today.
Yes, ma'am.
You look so pretty.
Thank you.
You
You too.
problem. Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started if you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, so my first question for you is, what has your music journey been like? How did you get started as a musician to where you are now in your career?
Well, honestly, it's been an enriching experience. I always kick myself. I should have started way sooner as a solo artist, maybe say at 18 as opposed to 23. But I'm definitely glad that I started when I did. I've learned so much, and being here in Houston has been a fulfilling experience, being that Houston is my hometown, so it's been great.
Mm-hmm. How is the scene here in Houston, like as far as music is concerned? Do you think it's...
Well, the scene here, we've got about 5 different scenes here in Houston. You've got the jazz scene, then you've got the party bands, and you've got the clubs and the lounges, and you've got the upscale restaurants, and then you have the country clubs, and then so on and so on. There's so many different scenes. So any artist of any background, color, or creed has the opportunity to further their career here in Houston, especially as an aspiring artist.
Mm-hmm. Houston is really big for artists, especially like even actors, or just there's a really big theater district here. It's really a lot of good opportunities.
Very true.
So, as you know, here at TSU, we say all roads lead to Texas Southern. What led you to TSU as a music student?
Funny story. I actually set out to be a pharmacy major.
Really?
I did.
Okay.
And that is what led me to TSU. Before I graduated high school, I just got really discouraged about music, believe it or not. I took one of those quizzes that they have us take when they say what your projected industry is going to accrue salary-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, 30,000 is not enough for me.
Yeah.
And that was before I knew I could do what it is I'm doing now. And so I was like, okay, what's the next best thing? Pharmacy. And where's the best school for that? Texas Southern. And then ultimately, I switched my major after a showcase, actually. Matthew Knowles hosted a showcase, I think this was spring of 2014, right after the holiday break. And I went and I did the showcase, and I was super pumped about just the advice that he had given me. And so I changed my major that following semester.
And you're a jazz concentration? Yeah.
Not necessarily. Mm-hmm. I am actually one of those students who went through pretty much everything collabs had to offer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I started with pharmacy with a minor in business. And then I went to music education.
Mm-hmm. Then
I went to music with a minor in theater. Then that turned into vocal performance. Mm-hmm. And then we somehow landed at vocal performance with a jazz concentration. And then we ended up with communications and creative arts.
Okay.
I took my own route completely.
That's good though, because it's you kind of get your feet in everything. You can try a little some of everything.
I did. And what that did was it really helped. Being a music ed major, I kind of got that background. I think I was a sophomore when I switched my major to that. And so I started to work as a choir director at a Montessori school my sophomore year. I was a music department director, and I would go back and forth from this little preschool in Pearland, and then I'd hurry and rush to class before lunch or during their nap time, and then I'd run all the way back to teach the 4th and 5th graders, 3rd and 4th graders. It was a time, but I learned then that music ed wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. And then when I got into vocal performance with a minor in theater, that taught me how to write a playwright. Professor Melanson was so instrumental in that, and so that was a great experience, that in itself. And then the jazz concentration. I learned so much as a jazz concentration major. I was introduced to so many different artists, different field trips and programs of that nature. The Monterey Jazz Festival was super inspiring for me. Then also in the jazz concentration curriculum, the majors have to take a course on entertainment recording, some sort of management or business, music business course. And so I took merchandising and branding with Professor Carr, Terrence Carr. She's awesome. She taught me a lot. And then, of course, getting into communication and creative arts with the College of Transdisciplinary Studies, they taught me, I took an intro into professional business communications. And what that revealed to me was a perspective a lot of people don't consider when wanting to do international business, but cultural affairs and just understanding the demographic of a country, what their cultural standards are for women in business, for men in business, for children, different things like that. Just kind of help you facilitate a better connection when trying to do international business. So that was integral. Just a melting pot of information, really.
That's really, really cool. Do you think that has like influenced you in your music career?
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to say 2021, I was in a band. I was featured as a singer with this band that performed for one of the galas for the 100 Black Men. I think it's a fraternity of some sort. And one of the attendees was there at the time with his then girlfriend. He had found me on social media. He reached out to one of the other singers that was on that event with me and asked for my information specifically. And he reached out and he said, I always told my then girlfriend, who I'm marrying now, that if I got married, I wanted her to sing at my wedding. And so we started to, discuss his vision and whatnot for his wedding. And I met with the bride at their proposed venue. And then out of nowhere, that changed. And they decided they wanted to do a destination wedding in Greece. By then, they had already paid their deposit, and they were like, just keep it, we're going to just do something small overseas. And I said, well, I'll go too. We'll take the money that you've already spent for your deposit, and we'll make good of it. Just give me a little extra for a flight credit, give me extra for a hotel credit, and they were okay with that. And so I went to Greece. And over there, I did extend the trip, and so I was able to kind of network and go to different bars and visit different wineries and pitch myself, and understanding just, their culture and women in business. They're very open to women in business. And so once I learned that, I was like, okay, well, this is my game over here. And so that helped a lot. And then on the way back, I had a layover in Paris, and I stayed it was overnight, it was about 17 hours, and I found a jazz club. I just talked to my Uber driver. I asked him, where is a jazz club? Do you have any? And he was like, their Google looks completely different from ours. And he pulled up this little club and this little flyer, and I went and I sung, and I think I left Paris with about 40 followers that night. The club was packed. The band went on that hosted the jam. It's really, really popular. But all of those things, understanding, culturally where you are and how to show up as a woman in business was very, very important. And so once I started my track with communications and creative arts and furthered that information, it's helped me in so many ways. Even, in Cartagena, Colombia, I was able to sing in a restaurant out there on a vacation, and then also in the Dominican, I was able to sing at a restaurant out there on vacation. So it helps to understand, how to pitch yourself internationally and things like that. So
you're living a dream. That's really cool. You can travel overseas and sing at jazz clubs.
Thank you.
That's something out of a movie, literally. That is really cool.
Thank you so much.
This is riding to the core. Guess we've burned it all down.
would you say that your time here at TSU impacted you within and outside of your career?
Oh man, honestly speaking, and I was telling Sinclair this, and he's been an instrumental part of my visibility here on campus when I was here. If it wasn't for TSU, I don't know where my career would be, actually. The truth of the matter, when I started to sing in the TSU Jazz Combo Band, we had really cool field trips. Dr. Perez has always been so great about getting us out there, getting us seen, and getting us in those rooms. And he'd bring different artists, his colleagues, to the school to just put on different seminars for us and things like that. And so he did one for the rhythm section. It wasn't even for singers. And I just popped in, and they were like, well, if you want to sing, you can sing. And I said, okay, great. So I sung. And the guitarist from that seminar, he took a liking to me, and he introduced me to a pretty popular instrumentalist here in town. And from that first gig I did with, his name is David Caceres, I've just kind of, word of mouth, it's just kind of traveled. And so, I've been with a slew of bands at a plethora of venues everywhere in Houston, really. I'm trying to think there's any part of town I haven't sung at a venue. But yeah, it all started with TSU. I started with TSU, and then when Professor Young was here, she was so supportive of the jazz band. Austin Lane was extremely supportive of the jazz band, and they would make sure that we had some of the coolest gigs during the school year. And so all of that visibility just from those experiences helped so much, especially the Monterey Jazz Festival. I believe Dr. Lane brokered that. I believe it was probably more so his father-in-law, but I kind of vaguely remember it. But we were standing right there, and I was in that booth right there, and we were recording a song, and his father-in-law was like, oh my gosh, we gotta introduce the band to the I think it's like the board of the jazz festival in Monterey, California. And they invited, Mr. Walker, he invited the band to come and perform, kind of like an audition, so to speak. And we didn't really know what we were doing. We just knew we had to be in the studio at, I think it was like 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. And so the whole band, we all came, and we were an extremely talented bunch, all of us. And so we performed, and they were just like, wow, gotta get them there. And so I don't know how they did it, but the communications department, KTSU, the jazz band, we were all out in California. And we were there for like almost a week. They had us in a really nice hotel. We had like a little food allowance, like a check. It was nice. It was really, really nice. We had all inclusive, like all access backstage passes to meet like all the artists that were performing. So we were able to meet people like Marcus Miller, Jasmine Horn, Derek Hodge, Patrice Rushen, oh my, just so many people. Gene Baylor. I was like, oh my God, TSU is freaking awesome. But honestly, I have no idea where my career would be without my experiences and connections from being a student here at TSU. Honestly.
I can definitely relate because honestly, coming here, I didn't think that I would be doing what I'm doing right now. I came here as a theater student thinking I was just gonna, act in a few little plays or something like that. But I've gotten so many opportunities, especially the past semester. Like TSU has been a really big integral part of my life so far.
I tell people all the time, at TSU as a student, what you are going to master is follow-up. Because if we know anything about the financial aid department or anything, if you don't follow up, you're not going to get whatever you're trying to get done. You have to get on the phone, and you have to get there in their face, and you have to, but when you build up that muscle of following up and getting in people's faces and getting what you need so that you can get to the next part of your phase in life, it takes you a long way.
Have you faced any challenges thus far in pursuing your career as a singer?
Oh man. Well, I wouldn't call them challenges. I call them realities. And I say that because it's, of course, we're here in Houston, we're in Texas, and we're in the South. And so I'm a black woman. I'm a beautiful black woman at that. And so, that poses a certain set of variables that, depending on the venue, sometimes they're like, yes, you're exactly what we want because we're trying to attract something. Or that poses, to a venue, no, you're not what we want because we're trying to attract something. And so it kind of can go both ways. And those are realities of where I am and how I present myself because of who and what I am. And so those realities, they've been learning experiences. What they've taught me is, you can't conform. You have to show up who you are and how you are in every space. And whoever, I say whoever rocks with that, rocks with that. And whoever doesn't, they just don't. Because there will be venues or spaces where black women are celebrated and respected. And then there are other venues and spaces where you're not. And so you just have to kind of